let's take you to Namibia, where the Namibian National Assembly 2024 election results are expected to be announced this evening. For the latest on the Namibian National Assembly 2024 election results announced, we are now joined by SABC International News Editor Sophie Mokoena. Very good evening to you, Ms. Sophie. We're learning that Namibia is on course to elect its first female president. What are the latest developments on the ground as we take stock of these latest moves?
Yes, the Electoral Commission of Namibia is continuing to announce the final results. It is in relation to Parliament, and SWAPO is still leading. We also have information that in terms of the presidential candidate, the SWAPO candidate is leading, and therefore it is expected that she will be president-elect of Namibia, as we pointed out previously during campaigns and towards elections, that whichever way this was going to be an important election for Namibia, because if SWAPO's candidate gets a nod, it means it will be a first woman to lead that country and a second woman president in the SADC region and on the continent. And also, if it was the other candidate to the opposition, it would have meant that the SWAPO party would have lost elections, which was going to be another big story. And therefore, the outcome today will point to the fact that SWAPO has been able to put forward a woman candidate, and that woman will be a president in that country. And we will now have two women who are leading in this region, the SADC region. As you know, that in Tanzania, the president or the head of state, there is a woman. But let's look back at what she had to say, the SWAPO candidate, when I spoke to her outside the polling station last week, Wednesday, after voting, in terms of the policy of SWAPO and also what SWAPO was promising and was offering during this election. Let's take a listen.
I have implemented that manifesto to the letter. So that is my first thing to do. And that is where I've kept my focus, because we have made very clear commitments, and that those commitments are met in those 5 years to come.
What are the key issues in the SWAPO manifesto?
The key issue, as you know, the biggest challenge we have in this country now is unemployment, which is really historical in a way that most of the challenges that we have been facing, they have a negative impact in the labor force. So if you start when we got our independence with HIV/AIDS, it had an impact. And then the world economic recession has also an impact on the labor. And then since independence 34 years ago, we have been always having droughts or floods. And you know, when your agriculture is affected, it's the major employing sector in Namibia. And because of this drought, a lot of people have lost their jobs. And then when COVID came, then the whole world was closed. So our priority is job creation, particularly among our youth. But our youth is because it's the majority of the population. So hence our election manifesto, we are saying in the next 5 years, we are going to put aside 85.7 billion specifically to create jobs. And we are saying the jobs we are going to create in the number of over 550,000. So we even have the programs which will be able to create those jobs. So that will be our first priority, because when you create jobs, and we also want to we have to make sure that there is good labor relationship in this country. And the people.
I suppose as we listen to your interview, what stands out is what has been the growing frustration amongst the people of Namibia, the high levels of unemployment and inequality in the country. One would have predicted that SWAPO would emerge, how one wouldn't have predicted how SWAPO would have emerged, considering that the stakes are high. There is a joblessness in the country and amongst young people. or young people I know you interacted with in the lead up to these elections?
Yes, you are correct. That's a huge issue, the issue of unemployment. But the reality is when you are in Namibia, when you are on the ground, you can see that the country is being run relatively well. Yes, there were scandals. You'd recall the fish rot, where ministers were even arrested, which is accountability, and perhaps other issues that are related to corruption. But the truth of the matter is when you look at Windhoek, for example, they were telling me in the SADC region that they don't know what load shedding is. And therefore, if they didn't have power cuts and problems, it means much as the economy is not so strong, there was no moment where they had to deal with the challenges of energy supply. And if you don't have energy supply, clearly you can't power the economy. So you can, that's the first thing. That was my observation. Then saying, you talk all the time about load shedding. We don't know what load shedding is here. You look at the city itself, and then we drove to the township where you have Africans mainly. And even there, you can see there are roads, there's an attempt to put infrastructure. But of course, perhaps in the countryside, it's a different story. I think the other problem for SWAPO was with fishermen who were not happy after the fish rot scandal, you know. Mm-hmm. And I think that was the main issue that dented the image of SWAPO and also of the government in Namibia. But some of those people are now facing the law. Some of them have been arrested and they are in jail. They are supposed to go through those legal processes and justice processes. So when you are in Namibia, you can see that there's an attempt. And that is why when you look at the reports of the IMF and the World Bank, they paint a better picture for Namibia. But because majority of the population is young people and they are not employed, of course you'd understand the anger from these young people. And sometimes because they were born after liberation and all of that, there are no sentiments in terms of the liberation organization. They just want delivery. And I think that is why she is saying that the main focus is going to be job creation, because you have to address the challenges of young people in that country.
Very well. Thank you very much. Let's leave it there for now. SABC International News Editor Sophie Mokoena.